So which one won the Grand Prix?
The rebrand of SABC One from the old, well-established Simunya to SABC One Yamampela.
Yamampela won the Grand Prix?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Jeez.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's you.
And one other international.
Yeah.
Well, I'm part of the team,
You're part
but
of-
I'm the marketing manager. So
You are leading
I'll
the
take
narrative.
I'll take. I wrote the brief. So I'll take.
you wrote the brief. And you know what they
I'll
say
take the
about the
credits.
good briefs, hey?
The heydays of advertising in my book
Yeah.
was when a creative studio had everybody you know today, who's anybody.
Who's anybody? Please name a few.
From whether you are the Mushapalo brothers,
Yeah.
Marcus and,
Yeah.
and his big bro, whether you are Neo Mashichu,
Shoo.
whether you are Grant Jacobson, whether you are Brett Morris, whether
Yeah.
everybody, all of these names in the same studio.
Yo.
And we were a powerhouse.
No, I remember those days.
We were a powerhouse. So I got to live through that period.
So let's talk Amapiano. Vocalistic is from your hood. From
I told you there's something in the
there's something
in the
about that.
Garankuwa waters.
Yeah.
And proud of his work.
Yeah.
He travels the world
He does.
applying his craft. They
Yeah.
love him in the US. We've worked and collaborated with him a few times. Very proud of him. I'm like, it's good to see human beings, and I meant it.
Yeah.
The human beings reside in this country,
Yeah.
so I mean it.
Yeah.
How does culture influence marketing?
It will always be relevant purely because of the fact that it helps keep you honest. It keeps you at the curve of what is going on.
Marketing needs to move at the speed of culture.
which plays a role in shaping our sense.
Welcome to the Culture Code podcast. In this podcast, we'll be telling stories of how influential culture is in business. You'll hear from some of the African culture curators on how culture can be used to drive good results through marketing and advertising campaigns. Now, here's the host of the Culture Code podcast, Tebogo K.
On today's episode, we have Boso Yadi Boso. We are hanging out with the pioneer of the advertising industry. We have Grootman Lago Karanga. Sure, I can go on and on, but I think, you know what, let me not spoil it. I think let me just go into it with him, and you guys will, hear for yourself what's what, Mr. Jerry Mpufane, ladies and gents.
I'm gonna make the big assumption that that's just for show.
That's just for show.
I'm humbled and excited to be here.
Yeah, no. Mr. Jerry, yeah, sure. Jeez, man. I think, we're just talking now of camera about, where you're from, Garangua. And I think, because we are here on Culture Code, I think we just need to kind of maybe start with, one of the biggest aspect of culture is storytelling, you know. And I think briefly, maybe if you can just maybe take us through your story, who you are, Uzago Karanga, yes. You came to Joburg, you studied here, you made it very big in the city of gold, So yeah, I think maybe take us through.
Sure. I'm a Garankuwa boy, so thank you for recognizing that, and proudly so. I've sort of seen the three lives of Garankuwa. There was deep apartheid Garankuwa, which is where I was born and raised to sort of like my lighty years. And then there was Buputatswana, which was its own version of apartheid. And in my high school years, I carried a very different identity document from South Africa because I was in Buputatswana. And then I experienced the democratic South Africa that happened in 94. So my Garankuwa has sort of like got those very distinct phases. And each one had its own characteristic in terms of how it influenced life in the township and how it influenced the likes of me being products and children of Garankuwa. So yes, it's my most loved hometown with its quirks and peculiarities, but there it is.
Yeah, Garanga.
Yeah.
So the zone mang when I go Garanga.
Zone 2, Garankuwa, I was actually born in Zone 6.
Yeah.
And this is going to give away the age. So when we were in primary school, there was sort of like a small little forced removal that took place on the occasion of the establishment of the Medical University of South Africa, which was built in Garankuwa. So that forced removal was moving people like me out of our homes so that the university can be built.
Jeez.
So born in Zone 6 and then moved to Zone 2, which is really where I became a man.
Yeah, sure. And so you come to Joburg. You go to your schooling. Your high school is in Garankuwa, and then you come here. You come to Joburg for tertiary studying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I came across a letter that I came across in my research. They talk about how you wrote a letter to one of the film production companies.
Oh, right. Yes. You were digging deep. You were digging deep. Here's what's interesting about a township such as Garankuwa. It's, you're northwest of the city of Tshwane, our capital.
Yeah.
And typically in a township, nothing happens, right?
Yeah.
It's dusty township and prospects are that. It's township. What was unique about Garankuwa was that institutionally, you were about 15-20 minutes away from Roslyn, which is still the commercial hub of the automotive industry.
Yeah.
Because the big guns, built the cars there. You had big institutions, the medical university that I mentioned. You had within the precinct of the township, you had an international hotel school. You had those years the Technicons, which was within our precinct.
Yeah.
You had an industrial area within Garankuwa that sort of came about with the industrialization that was driven by the Botswana government, and so all the big guns were there.
Yeah.
SAB's big factory was there,
Sure.
etc. So small township, also in the context of populous, relatively small township, dusty and all of that. But institutionally, there was all of this happening in and around Garankuwa. So the influx of people, influx of influence, influx of culture, etc., happened because you had all of these institutions.
Yeah.
So even though we were sort of far-flung out township, maybe nothing's going to happen, you do grow up with a slight bit of opportunity to sort of like see, hear things. You grow up and there's a thing called a university. There's a thing called a technical. Oh, there is a specialist school for cooking. Big industry.
Yeah.
Nissan was there. BMW was there. The big SAB factory that did what it did was there. Yeah. So you get to see all of that.
Yeah.
I think the benefit of all of that institutional presence did allow for young men and women of my generation to get a certain level of exposure to life outside of what would have been a typical township where nothing happened.
Yeah.
And I think that was the benefit.
Sure. Yeah. But funny enough though, there's none of those I think businesses that you mentioned, they are nowhere near advertising or the arts. So it's I think for me now the question becomes, so how did you now get into the creative arts and the advertising of this world, and how do you get into that?
So me and my cohort in sort of the high school years benefited from an out-of-towner. A lab technician worked in the medical university, set up home in the township, And he looked around and thought, what do I do with my evening and weekend time? Organized sort of a handful of us.
Sure.
And we started, like, I remember it was like literally a handful of us starting a youth club.
Sure.
And then that grew to become an institution in our society. So it took for an out-of-towner
Sure.
who was a seasoned professional in his own right, working for a great institution. As you know, the medical university is behind almost every black medical professional would have come out of that institution. So that's its contribution to our society. So he'd worked there.
Yeah.
And he organized a few youngsters.
Yeah.
And through that, we did a range of things. We raised monies for a library. We raised monies for, we formed a gymnastics club. We got to, out of that idea, get to travel a little bit outside of Harankuwa to go do this on the back of a van, just to go do this, do that. So that's what he did for that community.
What a man. Yeah.
And inside that conversation, a little bit of exposure, a little bit of career discussions and guidance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's where that sort of exposure took place, just from an out-of-towner who,
Sure. And you were now telling me that Brian Molefe is from Harankuwa.
Yeah, I mean, Brian's family was 2 streets behind my family home.
And Mamuketi.
Mamuketi Pakeng was my senior, and I remember the days of youth clubs and all of that. And she was in the mix. She's a home girl, and we love her very much.
Yeah. Wow. Cool stuff. Hey, geez. I think now let's go into the educational side of things. I mean, you went to Wits. You studied science of marketing. You wanna maybe tell us a little bit about that? What is science of marketing?
Yeah, so it's BCom marketing. In those days, I think we still run those programs. The big industry used to have these bursary schemes where they would get into underprivileged areas. Recruit and then send people to institutions. So I was a beneficiary of one of those sort of like an Anglo-American linked bursary scheme that got us into the University of the Witwatersrand. So that's how I get to Joburg. You can imagine that. I don't know what town you grew up in. No. Also, I imagine that your Mafikeng will be a very different Mafikeng.
Now, hey,
it is different now. So for a little kid in Harankuwa, Joburg was never part of the vocabulary, and the only time it would come up, it's a big city and it's a dangerous city. So you can imagine that, again, giving away our age here, you can imagine that youngsters in my cohort who were thinking, I'm leaving town, our families, our uncles, our priests in church, social, what do you think you're doing? You're supposed to be here. So it was a hell of a thing to be able to stand in front of your community to say, I'm packing and I'm leaving. Because everything outside of the comfort of your immediate society was not going to be good or safe for you. Let alone some of us who said we're going to Joburg, which was supposed to be this big, dangerous city.
So now this out-of-towner that who organized like a handful of you guys, this is the guy who influenced you writing a letter to one of the... I'm still keen. I'm still interested in the letter, writing of the letter to a film production company.
Yes. Yeah. So inside the workings of the youth club, we were doing cultural programs, sport, and then a big emphasis driven by his name was George. Driven by George was education, i.e. we arrive on the weekend, we're excited to be doing a little bit of sport, but the first thing he wanted to know is how did class go this past week? So education was very important. So and then when we enter teenage years, then the conversation starts about what's it you're going to do when you finish your high school years? So in that conversation, we got the benefit, unlike the average kid who grows up in a township, we got the benefit to start researching opportunities. And for whatever reason, I just thought this world of film and filmmaking sounds interesting. And literally just reading up on books out of libraries and books we'd collected, et cetera. And in my what is the second last, grade 11?
Yeah, grade 11.
In my grade 11, I started getting serious about, I'm interested in this film thing. And then started investigating who's doing film in and around Pretoria. Got a list of those institutions and production houses similar to this, et cetera. My first job. I see camera people here, and I don't know if any one of you knows what a redhead is.
A redhead?
She'll know what a redhead is.
What is that? What's a redhead?
Yeah. It was a that particular light used to have like the covering at the back was like a deep red color, which was industry standard.
I know a redhead. Yeah.
And yeah, so I used to be camera assistant. I carried cable on my shoulder. Carried redheads. Carried camera, set up shoots. So that's where I started. I was already 11 grade into grade 12. My holiday time. That's where I would spend my time, and that's how the as we were like seeking opportunity, a particular production house in Pretoria responded to say, well, come and see, and then that's how I used my school holidays, and that's the first time I heard about, we make ads. Oh, okay. That's how I start uttering the word advertising. So that was the fortune. That was the fortune. Yeah,
nice one. And I think, if I'm correct, I think the redhead, when it heats up.
It heats up.
When you touch it,
you'll burn. You'll burn. And then there was the blonde.
Then there was a blonde, the yellow one. Now I'm in school now. Okay. Yeah, now there was a blonde.
Yeah. So that's why. So the language of advertising and production and all of that. It starts. That's how it started.
That's how it started.
Yeah.
And I think fast forward to that. Now you were the MD of Draft FCB.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the privilege of working both sides. Learned the craft on the agency side, rose through the ranks, went into the corporate side because I needed my coach at the time. I heard you mention coach earlier. Mentioned that, well and good to grow up in the on the agency side, but you need hardcore marketing skills.
Sure.
So he drove me to enter the corporate side, corporate marketing and whatever. So a lot of lessons there. So privileged to say on both ends, from bottom all the way to executive level on both sides.
But so you stayed at this a production house where you land, obviously like your basic. And we spoke about the blondes now and the redheads. So the between that time and being an MD at Draft, what is happening there? Where are you? And is this where you in marketing and
So the knowledge and the practical experience and a little bit of travel. When you work on shoots, you get on a bus, you get out of town, which was fantastic because then that's how you learn. You start at the bottom, like literally set up shoots, and you dismantle at the end of a very long day. So you're learning the hard way, but there is no substitute to those lessons. I can say it today because I'm older, hopefully wiser. At the time, I'm like, why am I having to carry this? People are in the edit suite, you know.
Yeah.
And in the edit suite there were snacks.
And there's aircon.
And then I'm in the cold carrying stuff.
Yeah.
At the time was like, what the hell? So, did that. Finished matric in Garankuwa.
Yeah.
Got into a sponsored program at Vets to do marketing. Come out of there, work for a PR company, work for an advertising agency, work for a corporate. In fact, for the young ones who enjoy Happy Meals, I was part of that launch of the McDonald's and the McDonald's Corporation became my first marketing job.
Sure.
As we were launching in South Africa.
Wow.
And then
As what then? You are there as what?
I'm now a PR and marketing graduate. I'm now a marketing manager in the McDonald's system.
Sure.
The McDonald's Corporation gives me my first international travel experience.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they're a multinational.
Yeah.
Now I'm attending worldwide marketing meetings. I'm now
Yeah.
in a different.
You're a big shot now.
In a different world. So we're doing all of that, and then at some point the hunger back for the for the agency side of things. So out of McDonald's, I spent time as at the SABC. People who are familiar with the rebrand of Simunya to Yamampela, I was the marketing manager. Working with some of our industry greats who are still doing it. In fact, the director on that particular film that won as a Grand Prix, Lawrence Hamburger, somebody must put in this chair.
So which one won the Grand Prix?
The rebrand of SABC One from the old, well-established Simunya to SABC One Yamampela.
Yamampela won the Grand Prix?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Jeez.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's you.
And one other international.
Yeah.
Well, I'm part of the team,
You're part
but
of-
I'm the marketing
Yeah,
manager. So
you are leading
I'll
the
take
narrative.
I wrote the brief. So I'll
Yeah,
take.
you wrote the brief. And you know what they
I'll
say
take the
about the good
credits.
briefs, hey?
That particular ad, from time to time, I see the socials go on about it. If you recall, it was a juxtaposed storytelling of what if white folk lived in the townships.
Yeah.
It was a very unique piece
Yeah.
at its time,
Yeah.
and I still believe that in storytelling terms,
Yeah.
it's still a unique piece today.
It's still a unique piece today. Even the
And,
music.
the music
Yes.
and we worked there with Mapaputsi those
Yeah.
years and all of those.
Yeah.
So back in the that was my corporate life, and then rose to become the group marketing director at the SABC, and then from there came back into advertising. FCB, the Jupiter Drawing Room, FCB. I still tell at least our contemporaries. The heydays of advertising in my book
Yeah.
was when a creative studio had everybody you know today, who's anybody.
Who's anybody? Please name a few.
From whether you are the Mushapalo brothers,
Yeah.
Marcus
Yeah.
and his big bro, whether you are Neo Mashichu,
Sure.
whether you are Grant Jacobson, whether you are Brett Morris, whether
Yeah.
everybody, all of these names in the same studio. And we were a powerhouse.
No, I remember those days.
We were a powerhouse. So I got to live through that period. I got to work with Graham Warsop at the Jupiter Drawing Room, who's probably still the most awarded creative South Africa has produced. I still see Graham, and we get to drink some wine and shoot the breeze.
Yeah.
And then my last advertising job was at MNC Saatchi. So MNC, as you know, I was born out of Cape Town, gained traction in Joburg. They asked me to join. We grew the business, and those were my agency years.
Sure. Yeah. You've had quite a run, eh? like beautiful stuff came out of that. Like, jeez, I remember you were Brett Morris's and Neo. I mean, I was talking to Neo Mashego. I want him on that seat.
Yeah. You must absolutely. He's gonna tell his stories.
He's I don't know.
No, we'll get him here.
Yeah,
We'll get him
please, let's get him here.
We'll get him
He
here.
must come and tell us what's what.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez. I'm still on the SABC. SABC. Your time at SABC. And I think for culturally, I think that your tenure at SABC, I think I want you to kind of like maybe go deeper in terms of, giving us some of those, experiences or like that history.
Sure.
You are now talking about how, that time when you were at SABC, Zola 7 was on. Pure Monate show was on, and Pure Monate show is still one of the best. I mean, I've never seen anything that comes close to that show till today. And I think that is that your time at SABC kind of like shaped the South African landscape in terms of culture. Maybe you wanna take us through that.
Yes, I think I'm gonna start with the boring stuff.
Okay.
But probably the most important
Sure.
bit about the story of the SABC. There is a reason why we invest in public broadcasting.
Sure.
Whenever we having sort of barroom chats and casual chats, et cetera, you hear a lot of people talk down to institutions, public institutions.
Yeah.
There is a reason why you have public institutions. Any nation that is moved from developing to being developed, it is because public institutions such as broadcast got them to where they to where they are. So the SABC's role has always been, how do you capture the vision of the nation? How do you dramatize the nation's vision? And how do you corral people behind the nation's vision? That's why you have public broadcasting. And at its best, the SABC did that for South Africa.
Sure.
Here's a strange one for you. In the dark days, that's what the SABC did for the time. In that the psyche of the nation, in line with the policies of the nation at the time, the SABC played a very important role in promoting what that nation stood for in the apartheid years. In the democratic South Africa, their job was to transform it towards a new agenda that says we are now a democracy, a united nation that's charting a new path, etc. And its brief was exactly that, to say, how do you capture this vision? How do you dramatize it? And how do you bring everybody along with you? That's the role of the public broadcaster. And we had the privilege to be working at the time for the SABC during that transition. Right. I recall conversations that took place at the time when we were recruiting young 20-somethings to get into big broadcasting. Yeah. And they were getting the big contracts to go do interesting things, including experiment. Fat Joe Show and the Pure Monate Show and Zola 7. And in terms of, drama and storytelling, etc., Yizo, and Zone 14. And so all of that content was central to capturing a nation in transition. If you didn't have a public service broadcaster, you're going to miss that opportunity. Because that's not what the private sector does. So that transition, the SABC played a very important part to sell a vision of a new nation and then bring people along on that journey. So total privilege to have lived through those times.
And how perfect it is, I think it was captured properly, I think, especially with the ad. The ad was called what? Take another look at Mzansi.
Take another look at Mzansi.
Yeah. captured it so well. I think even though you were now talking about how the dramatization of it, I mean, which is it was so relevant. I think how better way to tell a story like of a past to where we were and where we're going now, right?
Yeah. We knew we were sitting on a very unique idea.
Yeah.
And then obviously over time you realize, yes, it was a unique idea. Take Another Look was exactly that, to say, here's a new nation. Can we recalibrate?
Sure.
And we use the term today, storytelling, etc. We've always been telling stories.
We've always been telling stories.
We are African.
Yeah.
We are the original storytellers. So we've always been telling stories. When you watch that film and its form and how it told a story in a very different way, I still don't call it an ad, because an ad has a very specific connotation. It told a very interesting story at a very interesting time of a nation transitioning to become this democracy we're proud of.
And all the way to winning a Grand Prix. And I think, Ahmed spoke about something, whether it won a Grand Prix at Cannes, right? So he was telling me about how, creativity or good work wins, all the time, and it doesn't matter whether you are like a Frenchman or whatever, good work will always win. It will always win the heart of a consumer or viewers or whatnot.
Yeah. I agree with that. There is no, and hence, and I need to be very careful here, because I'm an ad man.
Sure.
And I'm proudly ad man, and I understand what that craft can do to drive psyche, to drive a national agenda, or to drive commercial success. I understand that.
Yeah.
The way we were telling the story at the time, that particular ad had a bigger job than just promote a television channel.
Yeah.
It was a bigger national job that we had identified, and thankfully we went after it.
Yeah.
Because we could have said, no, that's not our job. Make the ad for the TV channel.
Yeah.
But there was a bigger job.
Yeah.
And thank goodness we went for that. So Ahmed is right. When you capture in a very authentic way the mood of a nation, and you dramatize it and you broadcast it, that's what that ad did. And anybody who'd watched it understood it in the context of it's bigger than just another ad.
Yeah. Okay. So now, I think anything that stands out from, take another look at Mzansi Grand Prix. That's a huge moment right there, right? So now when you move on to draft to, because that's corporate. You are on the corporate side of the world.
Yes.
Now, when you come back into the ad world, what are some of the things or some of the big moments that you've had in the advertising industry?
Yeah. So when we were draft FCB, we got the opportunity to. Not many people remember that Vodacom used to be green.
Green and blue. Hey.
Green and blue.
Green and blue. Yeah, with the meerkat. Yeah. Yeah,
so,
I'm also showing my age here.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So the campaigns that took place, Meerkat days, Yebo Gogo days, that was your blue and green Vodacom.
With Ntate Pheto, hey.
Preceding my time, it was Omotoso's dad. He's gone now, bless his soul. It was a prof.
Yeah.
So that's work that preceded my time.
Sure.
In my time, we rebranded Vodacom to under the leadership of the Vodafone from blue to red.
Yeah.
So that's the work we did.
Yeah.
Driving and helping reposition the biggest telco brand at the time. So that was sort of like a proud and milestone moment for a big corporate entity entrusting the advertising agency with a new path and a new journey and a new. So that was marvelous. And then of course, throughout all of those years, before my time, during my time, even post, Vodacom became one of those brands that deliberately chose to, away from telco business, we're selling airtime, we're selling data, we're selling packages. The brand chose to deliberately become a part of the fiber of society in conversation.
Yeah.
And that's what we enjoyed about the briefs we got out of client, and a client who was very ready to receive ideas coming out of a studio that said, let's have a conversation with South Africa.
Sure.
We'll sell airtime.
Right.
We'll sell data. We'll sell the phones, whatever. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
So any piece that would come out of a Vodacom would be back to the storytelling, cultural nuance, would be a South African conversation.
Yeah.
Would be a South African story. And then, of course, later years in my time at MNC, I got to work with another brand that did that, which was Nando's, which also said, hey, grilled chicken, beautiful.
Beautiful. Tasty.
But
spicy. Yeah.
We'll sell the chicken.
Yeah.
But let's have a conversation
Right.
with South Africans. So when we understand what advertising can do in creating conversation,
Yeah.
in being a part of conversation, in being part of the cultural zeitgeist, then that's the work that's exciting.
Yeah.
Because the consumer isn't having a conversation with the brand about, are you buying this piece or that piece?
You know?
They're buying into a conversation. And then
That's
the
it.
sambes follow.
Yeah.
Sales follow.
Souls follow, yeah. It's funny because I keep, I think I'm so excited about the whole, Yamampela, take another look at Mzansi. I really love that story. For me, it's like one of those. I would like us to kind of like now, because, you were talking about how we were getting out of a certain era as South Africa, apartheid era, and now getting into a different era. And then you had to like encapsulate that story in a certain way with the campaign that you were doing it with in SABC, SABC 1 in particular. So, I would like, for you to kind of like, in your experience, guide us maybe, or share with us how how the world is, or South Africa has transformed, from that time to now, particularly in the marketing and advertising space.
Yeah, I mean, throughout sort of the history of mainstream advertising, call it 60, 70, 80 years of modern advertising.
Yeah,
South Africa has always punched above its weight
sure.
in terms of producing great work locally, in terms of producing great work internationally, but also work that resonated with local audiences, but equally captured the imagination of the international community. So name any big creative festival in the world.
Yeah.
They've always recognized South African advertising during the dark years, during the transition, and even today. So I think we can be very proud as a nation to say we've always produced great storytellers who told unique stories that captured the imagination of the world. So that aspect of it, thankfully, has remained a mainstay of a South African character in terms of the advertising industry. What has changed is South Africa is obviously, and this profile speaks to the rest of the developing part of the world. South Africa is a young demographic. Yeah. If my facts are right, last time I checked, 70% of South Africans are under the age of 35. So we're a very young demographic, let alone the fact that we're a young democracy and economically we're on a path, building and on a path for growth, hopefully. Well, not hopefully, we have to grow. Yeah. And we have to achieve our ambitions. So what's changed is that you've got a new audience. What's changed is that you've got the people say these terms are important. You've got the born frees being central to the South African conversation.
Yeah.
The reason the born frees are central to the South African conversation, it is because we're busy now building the country for them.
Yeah.
What kind of country and what kind of nation do we want to build for this cohort of citizenry that then grows into a future to continue to compete with the rest of the world? So that transition into yes, we're a great nation. Yes, we're going places. The conversation we should be having on a daily basis is, what kind of nation are we going to build for these born frees?
Yeah.
So we launch them into capturing, conquering, here at home, rest of the continent, rest of the world. Now, when I say what kind of nation we're going to create for the born frees, the most important aspect of it is what the born frees themselves think that nation should be in character, as well as ambition. So there's a big conversation we having in parts as a nation that should become a central piece. And when you consider that the craft of advertising is probably the loudest voice in terms of content creation and storytelling and capturing zeitgeist, etc. The role of advertising in the context of the born frees, there's a big relationship there. If you're producing content, drama, documentary, movie, series, whatever the case is, alongside that is this behemoth of an industry called the advertising industry that gets the billions behind it annually to tell stories. If you're a content producer, how do you center your content and your storytelling in line with the ambition of the born frees as we build a nation today and into a future? There's a rich conversation here. It's exciting because not everybody gets the opportunity to create something new. Here we are sitting with an opportunity to create something new. For the born frees to define something truly exciting that says this is what's going to make us a great nation.
Now, are we the representation of the people who are telling those stories being, because I think we South Africa is a very diverse country, right? And the advertising industry is not transformed, right? And that's a reality, right? And you talk about the born frees that we need to, tell stories for or to. Now, should it not be that the people we are telling stories to should also be included into the storytelling, so that we tell the story in a more relevant, or in more like the more structured way, like we're not out of brief. I don't know if I think I'm struggling there with that question, but
no, I understand you clearly. If we use the example of the work that the likes of the SABC were able to do in the transition from the old to the new, there was a bunch of young, talented storytellers who entered the system and created the stories. No one could have ever scripted Zola 7 in those years. So he came onto camera and spoke his truth. And he became the most watched television show. So the opportunity today is, where's the born free Zola 7? And let them tell the story. Let them define what this ambition is for the nation. How does it manifest? What are their aspirations? This is the opportunity. Hence, I say it's very exciting to me that we can give young people the opportunity to define their own era.
But now, are the opportunities being given to the same, the people that you are talking about in advertising, particularly in advertising?
when I walk the creative studios,
Sure.
I do see a diverse set of young South Africans in the creative studio.
Yeah.
When I walk through marketing departments who issue communications briefs, et cetera, I do see a diverse grouping of people. Is there work to be done? The answer is yes.
Okay.
Is it early days? Certainly and absolutely early days. I don't think that we are true to ourselves when we say nothing's happened. I don't think we are being true to the reality when we say we are not transformed. There's different categories of KPI inside the subject of transformation. There's parts where we're doing well, and there's KPIs we haven't delivered yet, e.g. ownership, et cetera. But let's be true to the opportunity that sits in front of us that says, here's a diverse grouping of people on both sides, the marketing departments and the creative studios, who now have the opportunity to, if you talk to the greats like your Francois, who was writing the Yebo Gogos 20 years ago, where's a young Francois today who's going to give us a new South African story, a new storyline? And that is the opportunity, and that's why I believe it's very exciting.
So you're basically saying it's more on them than
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, if I told them what to do, they'll be the first ones to kick me out of it. Because they'll tell me you've had your chance.
Yeah.
But it truly is upon them to define, and across all sectors, and we're talking advertising industry here, it's up to them to define this new story and tell it and excite us.
Yeah.
And excite us in a way that the shoulders upon which they stand of greats who produced work that resonated across the globe, it's their turn to go make sure that South Africa's place in the creative industries is maintained. South Africa has always been at the table. It's their turn to make sure that we maintain and take it to the next level, for that matter.
100%. One of the things that I wanted to chat to you about, Jerry, is the technology. I think technology, because now we have AI, which is machine learning, algorithms, all of those things. And I think, and we've had a lot of guys here, and ladies, telling us about how AI, it has literally made their lives better, particularly in their work, in their line of work, which is advertising and marketing. I don't know if you in your line of work has AI. What is your take? Has AI worked for you? Has it made your life easier?
AI is an important subject matter in the context of the evolution of technology. What we shouldn't confuse AI with is, and talking specifically about the advertising industry, obviously the rest of the other sectors too. AI is no substitute to storytelling. Since the beginnings of man and woman, conversation, connection, storytelling has been inherent to humanity. Throughout thousands of years, hundreds of years, and modern times, you've had the acceleration of technological developments, which are important, which are necessary, and they move humanity forward, but they do not substitute the job we have as marketers, the job we have as advertisers to continue to tell authentic stories which resonate with our audiences. Tech is an enhancer and an enabler. It doesn't take away the responsibility for words to be crafted in a manner that captures the imagination. And that's what storytellers do, whether through music, whether through the spoken word, poetry, book. Storytellers play on words to capture our imagination.
Yeah.
So I'm wanting to separate the two, because oftentimes when there's a new advent of tech, we get very excited and you hear people saying, oh, what's going to happen to the copywriter?
Yeah.
You hear, look, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
The people who have the gift to craft stories using words, in my view, and I don't think it's too far from the truth, those are the people with the number one skill.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Whether you're an accountant, whether you're a radio broadcaster, if you can't tell a story, you can't sell whatever it is you're wanting to to propagate for. So the separation of the two for me is very important.
Yeah.
Am I a big fan of tech? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Am I a big fan of tech that moves humanity forward? Absolutely. So I say bring on AI as an enabler. If it makes the copywriter's job easier, absolutely bring it on.
Yeah.
What AI won't do, it's a big claim from me, and I'm not a scientist.
Yeah.
What AI won't do is replace the ability to play on words, telling authentic stories, which resonate with the audiences we wish to engage with. So I say bring it on as an enabler to help enhance the work we do.
We've seen a lot of consulting firms now playing in the advertising space. I think they've been buying agencies, or basically what they've been doing, they've been buying agencies and also buying tech companies and merging the two together. Do you think that's a right fit? Works?
If you look at what happens in you've got the verticals, right? You look at what happens with, let's call it Hollywood, because that's a sort of representation of film. Yeah. You look at what happens in the music industry. You look at what happens in advertising. You look at anywhere where we're generating content via copy. There's the business side, and then there's a creative side.
Yeah.
Let me deal with the creative side, because that's the most important.
Yeah.
The need to generate copy, tell stories that capture the imagination, still rests with beautiful wordsmiths who are able to put all of that together. And then technology can come in, and then we can package it, we can make it sound this way, look that way, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
The movement with the big corporations that have been buying creative agencies, that have been buying tech startups, etc., etc., to a very significant extent, it's all a play on markets, money, who's bigger than the next. Have I expanded globally? Do I have a footprint in that region? There's a whole lot that goes as part of that aspect of the conversation, and less to do with are these deals enhancing storytelling? There's a big argument that they're not. If anything, a lot of these deals have actually jeopardized what happens in the studio.
Yep.
A lot of these deals have been followed by a reduction in investment in the newsroom, a reduction in investment in the studio from a copy perspective, reduction in investment in all of the inherent ingredients to what does storytelling mean. So I'm not a big fan of these big deals, because they're exciting when they're announced, but that's all financial play in my mind.
Sure.
If I'd heard somebody, whether you're an Accenture, you're a KPMG, you're any one of the big sort of four holding companies in the advertising industry, if I'd heard anyone come up, said, I'm doing a deal, I'm moving a particular studio from 400 to 800 writers, I'll be like, ooh,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
all you're hearing is media company has been bought by X, reduction in investment in the newsroom.
Yeah.
Media entity X has been bought by this conglomerate. The researchers have been fired. The producers have been fired. Lean stuff behind the scenes. The guy who comes and presents the content isn't ready to present anything meaningful with the level of depth that a lot of these subject matter require.
Yeah.
Because the behind the scenes has been stripped
Yeah.
by all of these deals that get announced with, fanfare, etc. I'm not hearing any of these guys come and say, I've come to invest in this entity, and this is the chunk of the investment that's going to go into enhancing the
And I'm not
product
changing
and the
anything.
content. So I'm not a big fan until somebody says to me, here's a transaction, and the studio moved from 20 people to 400 people.
Yeah.
Now we start talking.
Now start talking.
So hey, fancy deal making, and some people are making money. Absolutely, it sounds all marvelous, but the product is suffering, and the product suffers because wordsmiths aren't getting the level of investment support they need in the studio as well as the behind the scenes of people who help and work to research and develop content. So those two things to me are at odds, and that is a problem.
Yeah. Good one. So you just now came back from after 5 years of spending time in New York, where you were the president of the North American hub for Tourism South Africa. It's funny though, because when your first international exposure was with an international company, which is McDonald's, right? Now you are coming back from from America, having been sent by a South African company. Can you please share a bit on that?
A total privilege.
Yeah.
To be able to apply my skill sets, craft, in the name of promoting my own country. Total privilege.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people who believes that South Africa is a superpower.
Yeah.
If you go across any sector, across the sciences, business, financial services, education, the creative industries, commodity sectors, name any one of those, you will find a South African invention.
Yeah.
Throughout the years, South Africans have been able to punch above their weight and lead in many aspects.
Yeah.
The rest of the world in a number of these sectors. I could quote you all sorts of examples, and when you tell people that the world's first traffic light went live in the Northern Cape. Sure. When you tell people that prepaid telephony is a South African invention. When you tell people that the idea of the ATM is a South African invention. And then we know the stories of years ago, the first heart transplant, and recently the first inner ear transplant using 3D technology coming out of Limpopo. Yeah. So name a sector. We're a superpower.
Yeah.
And the reason I say we're a superpower is because intellectually, from an IP standpoint, we innovate. So to a very significant extent, the job is done in terms of saying, who is South Africa and what are our credentials? My job was just to go let the people of the world know how fantastic we are. I'd worked with people in the tourism industry who are actually envious of South Africa because they say to me, I promote Nation X and I've got nothing to show. South Africa, when Beyonce starts thinking, I've got new music. I need new moves. Who does she call?
South Africa.
South Africa.
Yeah.
When Drake issued his album and the first song that went number one, who wrote it? South African. You could go on and on and on, and I repeat across all sectors. South Africans innovate and lead. You know, we came out of lockdown. The WHO came out and said, in the management of COVID, the biggest scourge of our times, South Africa leads.
Yeah.
And they pronounced.
Sure.
So the privilege to have been able to go tell the South African story is something that I'm highly grateful for. Obviously, North America is a big, if not the biggest market in the world. So we have to win in North America as a destination. The battle for the minds, as well as inviting the cultural exchange to benefit South Africa, invite the economic exchange to benefit South Africa. Just to put it into context, the tourism economy, the state president in one of his State of the Nation addresses spoke this way about the tourism industry. The top three driver of our future, the top three driver of our economic opportunity is inclusive of the tourism economy. 1 in every 12 people who are employed in South Africa, they're employed in the tourism sector.
Sure.
It's a $30 billion annual economy, sitting at about 4% of our GDP. This is before we even scratch the surface.
Sure.
We're sitting at 4% of GDP. Nations who do a great job at tourism are already sitting at 10, 11, 12% of their GDP. So the scope is huge. Can we? Of course we can.
Of course we can.
Why? Because we are that country and that nation that is endowed with innovators and storytellers who lead and not just follow.
I like that whole economic and cultural exchange. It speaks to me. I think it's as you said, I think South Africa, we are a superpower. We've always been winning. I think where particularly where culture is concerned. But we'll get to that. I think that's the Amapiano thing that I wanted to talk about earlier. So I think just the guys were now, no, get Amapiano, yeah, but we'll get to that.
We'll talk piano.
So you are leaving North America. I think where you found the North America and South Africa, you are leaving it on a high. You are leaving it on a very high note. I think when you joined in there, SAT, when you are leaving, apparently, well, I've heard the little Betty told me that you've done remarkable things there. You've won big time, and so can you share on that as well?
Yes, and I speak with humility.
Yeah.
A good result is a good thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And I am, after all, a South African.
Yeah.
We are winners.
Yeah.
We don't just do, and so a good result is a good thing. So it comes from a place of humility.
Yeah.
North America is a big market across any industry conversation.
Sure.
So it was important for South Africa to go win in North America in tourism terms.
Yeah.
So the work we'd put in 5 years ago, we were sort of, dabbling somewhere number 3, number 4 market for South Africa. We closed 2023 with the US being the number 1 international market. Yeah. The UK I see is coming back up, sort of reclaiming that number 1 position. But that tells you the progress we were able to make, growing South Africa's awareness and traction in the biggest travel market, being the US. So to be able to claim a top 1, top 2 place in terms of international arrivals is an important one. Inside that, and I hope this stuff doesn't bore the people who are watching, but this is the stuff that's important. The highest spend of any tourist who comes to South Africa comes out of the US.
Yeah.
the longest stay of any tourist who arrives in South Africa comes out of the US. In terms of geographic spread of tourists who come to South Africa, who end up going off the beaten path. You know, it's very easy to receive people, spend a little bit of time in Cape Town, maybe on safari, and they out. Americans, from a geographic spread point of view, visit more parts of South Africa than any other traveler. So that entire mix of KPI and result shows us the opportunity that's sitting in that market, and we continue to do a great job. We return jobs for South Africa. What I like about the tourism sector is that everybody wins. You're a car wash guy, you run a 5-star lodge, and everybody in between, everybody wins when we win in tourism. It is one of those sectors that truly, truly, truly impacts every South African. Whether you're a Magogo who's knitting in your backyard, or you're running a private jet company, everybody wins. It is one of those unique industries. And lastly, with tourism, it's one of those industries you invest today, you get your result today. I love the commodities industry. It's kept our economies going. If you invest in mining today, maybe we'll talk in 10, 20 years' time. Tourism, you invest today,
Right now.
you get your return today. So in the context of growing our economy, giving young South Africans an opportunity, there's a sector to be spoken about.
So when you joined, I mean, it was just, COVID has just hit, right?
Pre-COVID. So I got to see the good days before lockdown.
Well, pre-COVID, sorry, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
But you guys still did a good job. You still managed to bring in those numbers of that hub. And Americans still came here. So now, and when did SAA stop flying international? Is it back?
Yes. So South African Airways, I'm one of those people. Bring back our national carrier, please. If you know anybody, that's what you tell them. We want our national carrier back. So unfortunately for South African Airways, alongside many of the international carriers, we went into lockdown. Lockdown impacted their business, and not many airlines came back. The good news is that South African Airways did come back. It came back, it was energized domestically, continues to grow domestically, energized in the region, it's growing in the region, introducing new routes. It's rolled out routes into the rest of Africa, which is good news. It's now flying internationally. Recently, we launched the Sao Paulo route. So it's on a path, it's on a growth path. And the sooner we get it back into the big markets that deliver the big numbers, such as the UK and the US, the better for South Africa. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. There's always the headlines about the national carrier. I think we're having the wrong debate. The nations we call developed nations today took public money, put it into national carriers, and they've built their economies. Now that the developed nations are getting rid of their national carriers and privatizing them, everybody's saying, South Africa, why are you doing this when the UK doesn't have one? No. The UK was able to build their economy on the back of a national carrier. It is our job and our responsibility in our economic mix to make sure that a national carrier goes and fetches the opportunity. And if we're not having that discussion, I think we're fooling ourselves.
So now, the UK is coming back up. So it kind of fell like a notch down, and it's coming back so you're saying the majority of the people that come to South Africa are Americans.
Yes.
Right. But now, previously, we had a lot of people coming from the UK into the country. Why was that? If you're saying that we have a lot of people, the majority of the people that comes here are Americans.
The opportunity lies with markets where we have economic ties, cultural ties,
Yeah.
political ties.
Yeah.
South Africa was a colony of the UK many years ago. So those strong ties still retain the UK as a very important economic bloc.
I hear you.
We do trade with them,
Yeah.
political, family, linkages, et cetera, So it makes it a very ripe, low-hanging fruit for South Africa to go market and win in the UK. There's a bit of a harder job we've got to do with the rest of the regions, including the Americas.
Yeah.
But the UK is an obvious win. And we have to win in the UK.
Why do you have to win in the UK?
Lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Very little effort considering the familiarity of the destination that is South Africa to the Brits.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I think let's talk my piano. Let's talk my piano. So you guys at SAT, you were hectically involved with the obviously with the genre Amapiano. I mean, I saw you guys have held like I think talks, or you call them what, conferences, panels
Yes.
not even in the country, abroad,
Yes.
in New York, or where did you have them?
So, you know, in the cultural sense, the producers of the Amapiano genre today stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yes.
You know, the late Brahu, the late Mama Miriam.
Yeah.
South Africans have been at it.
Yeah.
And South Africans have always been at the forefront of exporting African storytelling in form, as well as African stories in terms of content to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And those are, you know, just two examples that are people I admire. So when the genre of Amapiano emerged in the last couple of years and bolstered also by lockdown, it's a very considering that it's fun music that's infused with dance, et cetera, for it to have like come out of lockdown was another interesting perspective. When that genre came up, the world picked up on it.
Yeah.
Speak to anybody who travels any part of the world. Whether you're in a hotel, you're in a restaurant, you're in an Uber, the likelihood is that you're going to be hearing a piano song.
In a yellow cap.
That's just how the world has embraced this particular piece of art form. From a tourism standpoint, and the reason we got involved with the creators and the performers of Amapiano was that strategically we sell South Africa through South Africa's own creators and storytellers.
Yeah.
The most expensive ad is not going to do a better job than a South African creator telling an authentic story about their creation. And Amapiano became one of those opportunities for us to be able to say, if we are going to go tell the people of the world we're a special nation,
Yeah.
there's a thing we were gifted, which was the musical genre, that is Amapiano.
That's Amapiano.
So how we were able to collaborate with these folks was twofold.
Yeah.
The one was, how do we create opportunity for South Africans to access international markets, while at the same time saying to the people of the world, come and experience Amapiano at its source.
Yeah.
And we were able to do both. So we were able to put South African artists, South African producers in front of their counterparts in the US. Hopefully somebody someday says, I'm scoring a film, let me phone a South African.
Yeah.
So we were creating those types of opportunities. You mentioned panels earlier. The idea was, it's one thing to be playing the music and people listening and hearing it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What panels allowed us to do is to actually have a conversation about the music, the genre, the origins, the people behind it. We had media in the room, we had producers in the room. How do we advocate for the genre. Firstly, to claim the ownership.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised what happens, and I would hate to speak ill of any other nation that's wanting to claim this thing, but you'll be surprised what happens.
Yeah.
So we wanted to be sure that South Africa claims this particular genre.
Yeah.
2, create economic opportunity for South Africans who are behind this genre in the international markets. And then 3, invite the people of the world to come and enjoy it here.
Yeah.
And whatever.
But how is it that, I mean, I've been seeing a lot of like that, particularly the Nigerians have been claiming, Amapiano, like they're talking about how Amapiano started. I don't even know how Amapiano I don't even think Nigerian man can say piano, Amapiano, because the Amapiano is like, it's not even Ama, it's like it's our, it's Zulu, or it can't be, because I mean, Nigeria have like Afrobeat, totally, that's their thing, but Amapiano, it's a South African thing. But how, I don't know if maybe you want to share how is it that these guys were claiming?
This is the only time in our conversation today that I'm going to be critical of my fellow brothers and sisters.
Go for it.
We do great things, and we don't talk about it.
Ooh, 100%.
We do great things, and we don't tell the people of the world that this is us.
Yeah, we are very modest,
and that's the work to be done. So and it doesn't matter what sector you're in.
Yeah.
One of my favorite South Africans is Professor Chilidzi, who's now left Joburg to go. Remember this. That's another beautiful South African story. When the United Nations University, with a campus in Japan, was looking for the principal for the university, they ran a global search and they hired the principal of UJ to go run UN University. So Prof. Chilidzi is now leading global conversations around education, etc. The reason I love him tons is because he's one of those South Africans who never misses the opportunity to tell people who he is, where he comes from, and message and advocate South Africa's innovations and successes.
I just love his books.
We need more of Chilidzi's out there.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
And my sense of what happened to Amapiano is less to do with what Nigeria did, more to do with what we didn't do.
What we didn't do.
To claim and advocate for our own creations.
Focalistic is from your hood. From
I told you there's something in the
there's something about
the Garangwa waters. And proud of his work. He travels the world.
He does.
Applying his craft. They love him in the US. We've worked and collaborated with him a few times. Very proud of him.
Yeah, I think just maybe I think for me, I'm just wondering how the agencies that you're working with SAT, advertising agencies, were local agencies or international? How was the whole thing set up?
The portfolio was set up two-pronged. The global central idea, global assets produced in Joburg by a homegrown agency, Joe Public. And we're very proud of that. And then in market, where you're needing local nuance, local expertise, etc., we then hired local agencies to help adapt global assets and make them relevant to the local markets. I still think that's the way to go. And proudly working with South Africans, Pepe, working with Tolisa, working with Gareth, working with those folk, producing assets that travel the world, promoting the destination. So that was our mix, and we're proud of that.
Yeah, I know we're still asking Pepe to come to the show.
He must come and talk to you about the work he's done in positioning the country. That's something I know he's very proud of. As a South African homegrown agency, I know he's very proud of the fact that he got the privilege to go and promote his own country.
Cool stuff, man.
Yeah, get Pepe in, get Tolisa in, and they've got stories to tell.
They got stories to tell,
Yeah.
Jeez, yeah. Jerry, you are back in South Africa now. Are you back for good? Are you going back? What's your pipeline?
Happy to be back.
Yeah.
I was in a meeting earlier this week, and one of my colleagues asks, are you happy to be back? I'm like, it's good to see human beings. And I meant it.
Yeah.
The human beings reside in this country.
Yeah.
So I mean it.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited to be back at home.
Yeah.
Professionally, I think it'll be foolish of me to throw away everything we've learned over the last few years here at home, international travels, and now recently being based in a big market. It'll be foolish to not leverage any of that knowledge, experience for my next step. I've been back a couple of weeks, still dealing with a lot of personal admin and all of that, seeing people and happy times. But I know that my next venture will continue to be in this space that says, how do we continue advocating for South Africa?
Yeah.
Because, like I said earlier, interestingly, it's an easier job because we've got a story to tell. We just need to get out there, package our stories, get them out there. I'm hoping that I continue to play that role of advocating for South Africa.
Yeah. You know, I was just thinking now, SAT couldn't have hired a better guy, hey, for this job.
You're
I think you're very patriotic about South Africa, you know,
You're
like
very
in a
kind.
big
Thank
way. You know, it's yeah, sure. It's I mean, listening to you now, I'm now just like, yo, yeah, you are very patriotic about South Africa, and it's very good to watch. I mean, to listen, and you know, I mean, being in the same room as you, and it's you listen to your stories and how you come about, and geez, man, what a man.
I appreciate it. You're very kind.
Yeah.
And there's more.
Yeah.
South Africans like me out there, and we just need to do what we need to do, what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Exciting times, man. I look at where we are today as a country, as a nation, and look ahead. Exciting times.
Yeah.
We just need to.
Yeah. And you forgot one thing that you said earlier. Let's go fetch the opportunities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's not sit in the township in Jozi in Cape Town. Opportunities out there. We need to go fetch it.
Yeah.
Back to the earlier reference that I wanted to make with the national carrier. Geographically, we're far from everybody. So if we don't fetch, who do we think is going to deliver?
Yeah.
So we need SAA to go fetch.
Yeah. Uthola kanjani?
Good one.
Yeah.
Good
Thank
one.
you,
Good one.
Mr. Jerry. Really appreciate you hanging out with us. It's been real.
My pleasure. I've had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you.
The stories are being told by the culture. Culturally, how people think is slowly dictating what the advertisers want to move towards. Marketing needs to catch up, but what you find is that marketers who need to implement the speed are backwards themselves. Marketers who are not forward thinkers. We need brave marketing or marketers that can influence culture.